Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Precursive Perspective. Really excited for today's conversation with the illustrious Stephen Elrod. How are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you.
You've got one of the best looking backgrounds I've seen so far this season. It's a lovely painted vista sort of background you got going on there, man.
Yeah, thank you. We did it all ourselves, the molding and the painting. Very
I've
proud.
got I've got mold in my house, but of a very different variety, I think, at the moment. Great to have you on. Do you want to give everyone a little bit of background to yourself, scope of your role, you know, edited history, whatever you want, man. Go for it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. As Jonathan said, my name is Stephen Elrod. I'm the SVP of Global Delivery and Professional Services here at Degreed. What does that mean? It includes consulting, implementation, technical services, technical support. I have an operations organization as well as I oversee a services sales organization. So we're a global team of about 70 people across all of those different business units. And we're focused on very traditional professional services and support metrics and conversations. We're helping to ensure that our clients just don't buy a platform, but they actually realize measurable outcomes from it. Degreed
Awesome.
itself is a workforce transformation platform. We help organizations build skills at scale, you can think of it that way, and connect learning directly to business priorities. So we are in kind of the HR ed tech space. I personally, background, have worked in professional services for 2 decades. That hurts. Across multiple different SaaS organizations. I've always navigated to younger SaaS organizations, helping them build and scale services teams.
All right. Well, you look good for 2 decades in PS. I mean, I think that's usually people going through the ringer on that one. But no, awesome. I think lots to dive into. I think you and I have known each other now for a number of years, and you've always been very lucid, I think, on the point that you raised there about driving outcomes for clients and not losing sight of that, which is difficult kind of as you scale a business and you're dealing with many more customers, because a lot of your clients are enterprise, right? Very much very large organizations looking to, as you say, mobilize their workforce better, improve the learning and skills of their teams, right?
Yes, correct.
Got it. Cool. All right. Awesome. So I think the first thing that I'm keen to get your perspective on is there's been a pretty, I think, important shift in how services is perceived in the market in general. I think a lot of the investment community, boards, executive teams sort of waking up to the power of services and how services can help to drive growth, particularly kind of in a market now where, things are not perhaps as buoyant as they have been in years gone by. So I think just kind of starting on this topic, I think services is a critical lever in SaaS go to market. So how have you seen that the role of services evolve in your business over the last years?
Yeah, the evolution story, right? So I've been here degreed for 7.5 years now. So if I look backwards for a moment, when I joined, services was a cost center, right? It was reactive. It was this bolt on or this required thing you had to have with your product. And in our case, we were even a for free organization. So we did not charge when I first joined for any of our services. Over time, to your point around the evolution, we've completely shifted that perception. And that perception, both internally and externally. So our internal organization's perception of us and the way clients interact with a for free organization that is considered this bolt on is much different. So we've moved from the reactive delivery into becoming this true like growth lever. Now we're central to retention. We're a key part of how we accelerate and close new business. And all of this evolution has included kind of that natural journey of starting with let's start charging for these one-time things. Hey, this is working. Hey, let's do some ACV type like managed services. This is working. And now we are even doing AI-based services, all
Mhm.
that help our clients kind of create value. And for us, a new predictable revenue stream. I always tell my team this when we bring in someone new. We used to be a passenger on this journey, right? We came along after the sale. Now we're the navigator, right? We're in the navigator seat. We're charting the course alongside sales and our clients. We're helping to build confidence and drive growth for the business.
Love it. Love it. I think that's the service's mission, right? Summed up right
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Being proactive, not being, just reacting to bookings, but rather like being in pre-sales, shaping deals, advising clients. Um, so this manifests in your world because you've got your services selling motion. I guess something that always stuck with me from conversations years gone by was I think it was like the 12% number, the 12% delta that you had between deals that you would close with PS engaged versus those without, which I always think just kind of sums up the role of services in go to market. But like how you mentioned sort of trying to be this on the front foot. So how is that really manifesting in your world at the moment then? What are you guys doing?
Yeah. So how it manifests or how it truly looks within our organization means that the sales organization brings us into the cycle well before contract, right? Well before contract signed, or probably even ideally it's discussed. In
Mm,
practice, it means a few things. We come in and we help speak to the client to articulate the processes that they'll go through, our methodology, really what our services team can accomplish, kind of highlighting our expertise. We run
mm,
some requirement type conversations, discovery conversations. We try to work directly with key stakeholders in the sales cycle to help build those relationships early on. And out of that, we create custom and bespoke offerings for the prospect. And that's, the mechanics. But really, to me, the power of how that manifests is the outcome. That's what's powerful. From that, clients feel like they've been heard, and they have been heard. That's not a false statement. They have been heard, and they
yep.
feel like they've been heard, and that the solution that they're receiving is tailored exactly to them. And they already know the people that are going to help them execute. You got to think, right, from an executive buyer putting their name on the line for something like our platform or product, it can be a little intimidating. And so for them, we're about taking that level of confidence and turning it from fear of failure into confidence of success. And so that, because we've done that, we've helped them move from fear of failure to confidence of success. We're accelerating the sales cycle, and we're not only helping to win the deal, but setting us up long term, right? Going all the way to renewal. It's helping us set up that longer term partnership.
Yep. Okay. I think there's actually a few things in there which is kind of fundamental to services. Like one is um if you've got a semi-decent sales organization, by the way, I'm not referring to Degree, I'm just still talking in general, then the majority of those organizations have been trained in and will engage in some form of value selling or consultative selling. And to your point, that's really like you want to be heard as a prospective client, particularly as you say, if you're making a large investment with a company like you guys and your job's on the line if it goes wrong. Let's just be clear, right? That's what you were mentioning. I think the thing that I think you guys have done really well is you've made it optimistic, right? Because I think that fear of failure often only leads to the status quo, right? If like let's do nothing because that's the least risky thing, or let's buy the lowest cost solution, right? And that's what fearful buying does. Um, Optimistic buying, which is shaped by services often, which is like there's an opportunity here that we need to go after. I mean, I was on a call with a prospective client last week, and there'd be an overlap in a solution. And I said, the work that goes in on both sides into building a business case is not some arbitrary, let's get the CFO to sign this thing off, right? That's not why we do it. You have to buy in and believe, Ted Lasso, believe, right, that you're actually going to deliver change. Because if you don't believe that truly, not just like you put it on a sheet of paper to get your CFO to sign it off, then there's no point doing anything. because this is like a 2-year transformation program. So why do anything? So I think that optimism is something that you guys have done really well. I think that's reflective also of you as a leader. You talked about this relationship with the sales team, and I think your organization, you have developed a really strong partnership there. What's worked in promoting that partnership and in enabling sales to position the value of services?
Yeah, we do. We have a great partnership with our sales organization. It's one of the things.
Awesome.
They're great people, great sales reps, and great partners. And so for us, the beginning of the enablement, or I think where we really started to pick apart how we could build on the partnership, was around helping them understand to stop selling hours of people and start selling outcomes, right? And so it's just human nature to say, like, here's a task. How long does it take? How much does that cost? And so we went through a motion through our enablement on just shifting that culture and helping them move into selling outcomes versus selling people and humans. That shift was really the catalyst that helped them take the confidence to position services as part of the solution. So we were no longer that bolt-on or that add-on. We were this full solution. You have your product and your services was old school, and now it's here's your degreed solution. And so helping them kind of move away from people and hours into outcomes got us to like solution selling. We also brought the data. As you mentioned, we have great data metrics on when services is engaged. We were able to increase win rates, and increase NRR and increase sales cycle or decrease sales cycle. Sorry. And
Mhm.
so those are powerful data points. Any sales rep their ears are gonna perk up and say, all right, let's give this a shot. So we led with data as well. I think that was a huge win for us in kind of bringing them along on the journey. But I'd say the last thing is helping them understand that we are the differentiator. And so using services in their sales motion as not as the implementation support or as these human bodies, but as expert consultants with proven playbooks that have helped hundreds of clients be successful in this space. And so we shifted the way that they talked about us into the bolt-on into a differentiator. Specifically for us, many of our competitors utilize SIs, which is a great model, works very well. But for us, we can go to market against some of our larger competitors with that kind of bespoke boutique consulting house methodology and show that we are these experts. So
Yep.
where I leave it with most of our new hires is new sales reps. I say in SaaS, software gets you in the door. Hands down, everyone knows that. That's how you get in. That's how you get the first call. But services win the trust. And so clients aren't just buying a platform, they're buying a partnership, and they're looking for that playbook of success. And so we kind of lead with this, yes, product's important, product's going to get you in that door, but we're going to help you win that trust.
Yep. Services is also like it's also a signal, to be blunt, on how sold someone is, and when they're starting to lean towards you, right? Because if you're buying something and you like what you see, a natural disposition is to say, how long does the implementation take, and how does that work? And do you do that, or does somebody else do that? Like, if you're getting asked that earlier and earlier in your sales cycle, you're doing a great job in your go to market, because it's like people are like interested in your solution to begin with. And I think the best salespeople very much lean into that, right? They're honest about how long it takes. They're knowledgeable about how it works. And they're not afraid to then partner with their colleagues and bring them in and have what I call the services led selling motion, which is where you kind of hand the baton to the services seller or services colleague underneath the waterline, and you're, like you say, you're talking about the solution as one. You can sort of tap people in and out, right, in that sort of concertina motion. So I think that's super interesting. I love selling outcomes, not humans. Should be like a services, like t-shirt. So turning to so I think you've summed up a lot of the journey, right? I don't know if you heard, there's this thing called AI, like in the marketplace, that people are like talking about, artificial something. I'm not sure. But anyway, so AI, right? Everyone in services that I encounter is being tasked with, look at my hair now, look, being tasked with doing something with AI. And in the worst of cases, it's kind of this really non-specific, go and figure it out, like some from the exec or from the board of like, we need to be doing more. So I'm looking to just understand like where you guys are at with this because learning is for me an absolute prime example of an area where you can massively leverage the power of AI. So help us understand what are some of the things that you're doing with it and with your customers to begin with.
Yeah. It's interesting. I talk to a lot of my peers, and if you think through kind of what are a lot of services leaders being asked, and you and I had this conversation, there's kind of one end of the spectrum, which is this efficiency and scale without headcount. And I think on the other end of that model, maturity model perhaps, is like this go-to-market motion and these AI-based services. Our direction was immediately to go after kind of building services and going to market that had the AI focus and would classify as AI revenue versus kind of the importance of operationalizing internally. So we're doing all of it, but our original focus was to go after the market and design services where we could utilize AI that would qualify as AI revenue and ideally qualify as AI recurring revenue. And so that's exactly what we did earlier this year is we built out AI powered services that help our clients really get the most out of their degree platform and realize that in value and investment much faster and much deeper. It helps them, our services help them kind of reduce costs, and rather that's by reallocating headcount, or a lot of our services help clients reduce other tools in their portfolio. And so our
Yep.
services can take that's kind of the value add is if you have our humans and our AI doing what our services provide, you no longer need other tools. And so we're building the value of Degreed by letting them kind of take out a couple other things. So our services help them scale personalization and curation. And that's really what it's about for our
Yep.
business. And so it helps them free up their time. It helps them reduce costs. And so,
Yep.
that's kind of the idea of the service itself.
So it's surfacing it up because you're a lot of the value that you provide is helping your clients who've got these global teams like optimize their learning experiences and curate learning materials and assets to them in the moment, right? To drive like the diversification and the upskilling across the organization, which is super hard to do in enterprise businesses. So I could perfectly see how you're like just within all of that more quickly able to surface that to users across your customer base. Is that
Yeah, exactly.
great?
That's, and, content libraries are it's a
Yeah.
whole podcast on its own, right? There's so
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
content out there
Yeah.
that's never utilized. Content libraries have some of the lowest adoption out there. And so we help
Yeah.
to personalize it all. So you tell us what you want. And our AI and our curation specialists who are able to support that will go out and make sure you get very targeted, very personalized content at the push of a button.
Mm. But I think that's why it will work beautifully for you guys because stuff that was potentially quite dry or static
Yeah.
previously becomes much more dynamic. And those organizations, though, that invested in like kind of the core foundations of like their learning materials, their curriculums, their pathways, who are like, I want to, bluntly kind of jazz up a load of these docs. Like, this is an amazing way for that to be used. We've seen that in our customer enablement, right? Like when we were onboarding clients, traditionally you'd send out materials for people to read to help them prepare, and it's very static. It's quite dull. In services, we're always reading stuff all the time, so it's like just don't give me another doc, quite frankly. So having something now, we do this in GPTs, it's more interactive. It makes it a lot more interesting. A blocker though is the literacy or the what I call the AI literacy or lack of it in the customer base, right? Which is basically what I mean by that is working with companies and people within companies who are not trained on how to, or forget trained, do not know how or are not confident in working with AI, right? So like they go to a GPT, they try it once, it doesn't work. They say, "Oh, see, it doesn't work." So how are you guys looking to bridge that customer knowledge gap?
AI. Yeah, that's another podcast on its own, professional and personal, I feel like. So for me, listen, leaders know that they need to act on AI. Everybody knows this. This is this thing, and everyone knows it's a thing, but most of them just don't know where to start.
Hmm.
So what we've designed is an approach that meets them where they are. And so what we're doing in a couple scenarios is it might mean running pilots or POCs to help build that confidence and help
Yep.
build that understanding of what they need to do. We've also started to do a lot of building of targeted specific use cases because they have, to your point, they know they want this GPT concept or they want this idea that can do this one thing. Now, as a services leader, I want to say, no, we're not going to do one thing, right? We're going to look at the whole picture, but we're finding success and going ahead and saying, all right, let's just focus on this one thing first. And so building these really great targeted use cases that have kind of the points out to other value drivers.
Hmm.
And then honestly, the last thing that's really working is just doing it for them and
Yep.
saying, all right, instead of giving you a service that teaches you how to fish, I'm just going to fish for you and I'm going to cook it and I'm going to serve it to you. And so you are no longer overwhelmed in any way and you can see the
Yep.
outcome very quickly. And so that is really starting to take off. And so for me, my hot take here is that this AI world is where services will take on a bigger role than we've seen before.
Yep.
Traditionally, in SaaS, you can think of services have supported the product. I think in AI, it flips. And that's where services become the front seat. The product enables it. Many
Mm.
clients want the outcomes of AI, and they don't want the burden of implementing it, governance, maintaining it, and like all of the things that come with it. And that's where
Yep.
services comes in. And so AI products are right now, right? They're getting all the headlines, but services make them real, right? It's the future, or the future isn't product with services attached. It's services in the lead with product enabled.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think your point around like there's an element of like we're gonna fish for them is so true with AI. One of the interesting things I think with AI is, you've worked in services for 2 decades. I'm older than I look, let's just put it that way. And I think a problem with this is potentially a lot of folks who are later in their careers, like having to learn a new thing, right? And that is hard, scary. You've got kids, I've got kids. I love it how quickly my kids pick things up, right? Um, but it's not the same for adults when you've got to learn a whole like new piece of, like a whole new world, right? And that can be very intimidating. So there's a lot of I see people where they're like, I'm like, what are you trying to do with AI? And they're like, yeah, we're trying to build an agent. I'm like, hold on, whoa. Like you went there first, right? You jumped all the way to we're going to build some agents. And I think it's a little bit of sort of people start with this blank piece of paper, right? They're like, oh, what are we going to do? And then they just like, they have a blank piece of paper. And it's like, well, what should we do? And they forget all of the things, particularly in services, that you do over and over again. For example, your customer journey mapping, which you continuously do and iterate to identify bottlenecks, areas where you can improve. That was where a lot of our AI inspiration came from originally in our organization was we did surveys of people, and through those we realized we didn't really have policies, we didn't have guidance, we didn't have security protocols, all of these types of things. So we had AI products, we had done AI hackathons, but we just didn't have this foundational layer of like here is how we are approaching this. And in around the same time, we did a customer journey mapping exercise, and we mapped out customer emotions where they would engage with us. And one of the things that we found was that like clients are stressed, right? They're stressed coming in because they've got all these problems they want to solve. They're always under the pump. Our particular customer base is always under the pump. So they're always like putting out fires, dealing with stuff. Like there's never a quiet time. So they're fundamentally we were like stressed, right? So our role working with them was to be Zen. That's what one of the things that we came up with. And so AI really fitted. We then started mapping over the top. Okay, where does AI sit in this, right? And it sits in terms of like knowledge transfer. It sits in terms of like upskilling members of your team. It sits with upskilling customers, right? And all of these types of things. But when you sort of fold it in with all the stuff that you know already, I think that to me is the most important thing that people need to realize is like, don't start with a blank piece of paper. Go back to the things that you already know and have researched and understand as problems within your environment, and then think about how can this new smartest member of your team ramp into that environment and begin to solve problems. But anyway, rant over. On that one, then. So going back to these, how do you see AI coming in and being used in your services delivery to improve the productivity of your team or to help clients in how they get ready for working with you and the engagements that they have with Degree? Talk to us a bit about that, please.
Yeah, kind of the internal lens for me. Uh, I think of it as like the lens on a telescope, right? And so AI is helping to clear away the noise, and it's like focusing this lens so that
Mhm.
as you clear away that noise, the picture becomes clearer, and that allows our clients, I mean our consultants, to focus on the big picture with clients, be more strategic, be more consultative, because we've
Yeah.
moved away from a lot of those repetitive administrative tasks. So we're
Hmm.
kind of looking at it from the lens of how do we create the headroom for our consultants to be more and operate more strategically, to your point, very similar to what I think you've outlined. And we're going after those repetitive administrative tasks like reporting,
Hmm.
data analysis, taxonomy type tasks, things that are probably more proprietary to our organization.
Yep.
But those are the things that we're really starting to pick apart in order to make sure that we're creating the right space. So giving them less grind, less of the things that I don't really think they really enjoy doing, and more insight, and
Hmm.
ultimately a better experience for our clients. So we're still early, I think, in this stage. I think some of the things you've actually shared have been phenomenal for us to kind of think through and get started, but that's the way we're approaching it.
No, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. I mean, I think it was interesting how I think one of the things that also I found interesting about it was once you understand some of the principles, well, you can kind of be a little bit AI technology agnostic to it. So like we've been building GPTs with OpenAI, but the way that you can build them, like the mechanics of it, if you want to do that in Gemini, doing gems, or in Microsoft Copilot, which I played with the other day, it's kind of essentially the same thing, right? And I actually asked AI this. I was like, if I want to build GPTs and all these different techs, is it fundamentally the same stuff? And but again, I think what it comes back to though is if you are building GPTs or you're building AI solutions that will support, as you say, sort of services motions like configuration or design. We're working on one at the moment for like SOW refinement, right? So someone will do the SOW, refine it. Usually that goes to peer review. It went to peer review this time to up to Graham, who you know, and then it went through AI and to spot all of the gaps, which is cool. But we were like, right, well, surely it should do that first and then go up to Graham as an example. I think that when you though learn that a lot of these things are like you can scale them and be quite agnostic with the AI technology, I found that quite reassuring. Because sometimes I think that's potentially a blocker. Um, Finally, then the I think you've been there more than 7 years. You very much transformed the organization. You restructured it, brought different offerings to market, professionalized it, matured it, moved it from being cost center to profit center now. Yeah, yeah, ish,
Close. We're almost
close.
there. End of year.
End of year, good. Um, and I think, so something that we've been looking at in the Services Delivery Alliance is just the number of organizations that are transforming, which is pretty significant. It's like 80%. And that they're updating, strategy and operating models. I guess just your take on what the future of PS looks like. More of the same, changes? What's your thoughts?
Let's see. Future of PS. I think asking any leader the future of their space,
Yeah.
probably super like innovative and strategic, but all contradicting. So let's see
Yeah.
how I do. For me, number one thing I'd say is professional services has to move and will move beyond being known as the implementation arm or the onboarding team, right? That has got to go away, and it will be how we mature and evolve here at our organization as well. You have to begin to see, and we'll see the services organization as the strategic engine, a strategic growth engine of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that we are embedded alongside clients, we're accountable for outcomes, not just these push buttons and pull levers. For me, I think it's starting to look a little bit more like forward deployed consultants, if you will, and
Yep.
having the consultants delivering the end-to-end execution, solving problems in real time, guiding clients on how to scale with confidence, and doing all of that through the entire pieces of the client journey. So I think we'll see an evolution in that, and the reason why, and the way we'll see that is all with AI on the backbone, right? As that shift occurs, it will require AI to take off some of these repeatable aspects and work that consultants are doing today, so they can focus on things like insight and impact and become these kind of forward deployed consultants more and more. So I think
Yep.
that's sort of directionally the shift that I would expect to see, us becoming more of the competitive differentiator, and we are the promise, right? Services becomes the promise that makes SaaS real for clients. So today it's this great thing. Yes, we want this product. Yes, we want this platform. But what makes it real needs to be kind of the people and the services and the consultants.
Mm. Okay. Interesting. I think on that then, this intimate understanding of the customer is so critical to that, right? Um, because to be forward deployed, to be embedded with customers, to be working with them either in a dedicated fashion or just very closely with them, you might be working with a handful. It's very similar to a consulting model, right?
Yeah.
Prior to, OpenAI or Palantir, making FTEs like fashionable, IBM and Accenture would be sending teams embedded into customers for years, and no one called it SaaS. It was called consulting. But in those worlds, in those more traditional worlds, like anyone who knows consulting, like, there was a time gone by, and it still probably happens, where you sell the A team, you get the B team or the C team. So, you had people with industry knowledge, partners going in, selling transformation and solutions, and then, a bunch of people roll up at your office who've got zero knowledge of your industry. So I think for what you're describing, which I think is the way of the future, one has to be able to ensure that the team really intimately understands the customer, is trained on that, has the breathing room for that. So as you said, AI is automating tasks, or you're getting rid of manual work that is inefficient, or making certain things much more efficient in how you do them to allow people to be more strategic. I do think there needs to be a shift in how people think about L&D and services, though. I think just the amount of companies that I talk to that don't have a really well thought out training and enablement program for their teams is like shockingly bad, to be honest with you. But I think what you're describing is very much the future. If you had to do it again, right? If you had to sort of do this overall journey that you've been through again, when you look back, you always learn. It seems so obvious, but what would you do differently? What would you change? What might you do sooner? What are some thoughts there?
Yeah. So I would start with telling my younger self transformation is much more, or is as much about mindset as it is about structure. Meaning, we over rotated on the operations and mechanics of everything that needed to be done as we've evolved. And I think we could have done a much better job, and I will in the future do a much deeper job and kind of shifting hearts and minds, right? Bringing the organization along through the journey, gaining buy-in from client, internal and external
Yeah.
components. So while yes, a lot of our evolution has worked, it could have been smoother had we put more effort into kind of just the change management aspects of it. And I think we did that probably more. We did that all right from the client side externally, but internally we pushed versus brought people through. So next time, much more looking to gain more buy-in, identify champions to help us transform and evolve as an organization. It's where I've seen more success as we've moved in that direction. So that would
Yeah.
be kind of what I do differently. What I would do sooner is the ACV, right? The recurring services model.
Yep.
I think we wanted to kind of get the one time figured out and then go into recurring. And I think we probably could have done those things in parallel and had a better
Yep.
recurring revenue stream much earlier than we did. And so I would advocate for anybody who's kind of thinking like, could we do this? Should we do this? Yes. I would, and I would do it sooner.
Yeah. I think I would do it sooner with recurring because of the impact that it has on your gross and your net revenue retention as much as anything else, right? It's great to be selling something that is durable and reoccurs, right? It's a recurring service, great. But I think it's the overall impact on customer outcomes and value, particularly where you've got a large transformational product and platform like Degreed. It doesn't change, doesn't happen overnight. On the hearts and minds thing, I think the DNA of the team is always the unknown, right? So you can have a group of people in sport, and sports teams is a great example of this, where you look at the squads of players and you're like, this that they're like both like on paper great squads, and then those teams either in the championships they play in, the leagues they play in, or the tournaments that they go into just can't make it happen, and then some just get it. And it's the I think the bit that's maybe underappreciated that I've really only tuned into, I think probably in the last 18 months, is like the DNA of the people. If it's the right people, their attitude to change fundamentally will be very different, right? They'll be open to it. Yeah, they'll be like, fuck, let's do
Yeah.
this. Come on, let's go. Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to stay how we are. Let's continuously improve. Let's be the best team that we want to be. That doesn't mean that you need to stay in services your whole career, right? But when I'm here, let's get after it. And I think that DNA, that attitude, it's less about like, skills you can train, in certain, certainly in most areas, in my opinion, but attitude, like, and the energy
Yeah.
that is associated with that, like that's a different thing. And if you find yourself lucky enough somewhere where the team that you inherit or the team that you build has that, it makes it so much more fun and enjoyable because you just have people going squirreling away, going and doing stuff like, oh hey, look what I did, and like, this is amazing. um Last thing then, you've talked about just then about change, right? And when you grow up a services organization, which is terrible English, Jonathan, but when you mature a services organization, um, there's a reason why you're looking to become more profitable, right? Because we are SaaS businesses that are valued on a proxy of ARR, not on services revenue. And that services organization, if inefficient, drags on the overall performance of the companies that we work in. So there's a reason why like governance and control and financials are inherently like part of running this business within a business. Um, how do you get people to um understand that, right? In the context of the change that we've talked about? Because it's so fundamental, isn't it? They're like, well, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to track
Yeah.
things? Why do we have to worry about this?
Yeah. Yes, we go through that. So I would say, so consultants themselves, by human nature, right? I grew up as a consultant. Consultants are very data driven or data inquisitive, and so we lead with data and we lead with the why in a lot of our decisions and the logic behind our decisions. We find that's really starting to help as we start to be more transparent with any of the changes we're looking to make and show the metrics, show what they will impact, not just for the greater business, but for them personally. So we tend to take three lenses to everything when it comes to change. We look at what does this mean, rather benefit or the risk for the client, the individual, and the company as a whole. So it's kind of a template that we apply across a lot of these things, and everyone's kind of grown accustomed to seeing and thinking through things in those three lenses. But they can really hone in on what does this mean for me as the individual. So being clear with the WIFM, the what's in it for me, has helped a lot. And so when we did that, I think people saw that the governance started to remove the chaos and gave them more time for the meaningful client work they genuinely and truly do want to do. I think any good consultant is out there wanting to be strategic, wanting to do more than enter time, but they can see that the entering the time is what's getting them more bandwidth to do the more innovative and strategic things. So once we did all of that, the narrative completely shifted from compliance to empowerment.
Yep. Yep. I like it. I like it. I like the different lenses. Loads of good stuff today. Thank you ever so much for taking the time and also preparing. I think there's a lot of I think what you guys have, and you in particular have been really good at doing is kind of combining the human element to this with like kind of the business fundamentals. I think that mission of services in Degreed as services being the navigator and helping our customers towards that North Star, right, of transforming their workforce is fantastic. I think bringing the optimism to it as well and being like, this is an opportunity for us and our clients to change. Like, let's look at it through that lens rather than just through kind of more of a negative perspective and really being focused on those outcomes and not just bodies, right? So that's thinking of people as a an asset, not a commodity, which is great. And then I think it's amazing to hear that you've been able to generate like AI revenue and AI recurring revenue streams because frankly not many have, which is impressive. So thank you very much indeed, Stephen. Really appreciate it. Do you enjoy it, sir? It's not that bad,
Yeah,
is
yeah. It's a great conversation. I appreciate it.
it? Awesome. Thank you, sir. Well, listen, on with your day. Thank you very much indeed for joining.
Yeah, yeah. Let me know if you need anything else. Happy to help.
All right, take care.
Thanks. Yeah.